The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. We'll talk all things Hokie wrestling with Coach Tony Robie and staff. Now, let's join your host, Hall of Fame wrestling writer and broadcaster, Jason Bryant.
Quick turnaround with the latest episode of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. Jason Bryant here with you, joining Tony Robie, the head wrestling coach of your Virginia Tech Hokie wrestling squad, fresh off a victory at number 3 Ohio State. That victory has vaulted the Hokies into the top 4, tied with Wisconsin behind Penn State, Iowa, and Nebraska. Coach Robie, that's an exciting thing, but that's not the most exciting thing going on with Virginia Tech wrestling right now. You and Mekhi Lewis are headed to the White House. Yeah,
Mekhi, obviously, part of winning an NCAA title, they do an NCAA Champions Day. So Mekhi's been invited, and they invited me to tag along. So we leave tomorrow. We're doing a tour of the Capitol building tomorrow evening, and then we have an opportunity to go to the White House and meet the president on Friday morning. So it's pretty exciting. It actually worked out really well with us wrestling in Annapolis this weekend, just the timing of it and the geography of it. So, yeah, we're pretty fired up. Mekhi's pretty fired up about it. It'll be, you don't get to do that every day, so it'll be a unique opportunity.
Now, as hard as it may be for some people to take their own political alliances and politics out of the situation, the fact is you've got an athlete winning an NCAA title for the first time in school history, and is going to be there with, basically the leader of the free world, regardless of who holds the position. This is something that, it's a once in a lifetime type of thing for a lot of people. So what was Mekhi's first, reaction when this type of thing came down the pipe?
When I asked Mekhi, his response was, yeah, I'd like to meet the president. So I think he had a big smile on his face, and he was pretty excited about it. And then, we talked about going up and even, the night early and touring the Capitol. And I think it'll be a great experience for Mekhi. It'll be a great experience for me as well. But for somebody at his age to be able to do that and experience that. And, I'm sure that's something that he's never had an opportunity to do. I don't know if he's ever spent any time in Washington, D.C., but I've been up there a few times. It's something that you need to do and you need to experience. So I'm looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to being able to spend some time with Mekhi, and he's not traveling with our team this year, so we'll spend 10 hours in the car together, and he'll probably sleep for 9.5 of it, but it's good. I'm looking forward to it.
Now, from your perspective, a lot of people grow up on the East Coast. I grew up in Virginia, so, at some point, the field trips to Washington, D.C., and the trip to Jamestown and Colonial Williamsburg and Yorktown, some of that just becomes part of like, okay, yeah, good, the Capitol building. I've seen it 100 times. For you, what's this mean for you to be able to get a deeper insight into what our nation has in terms of, one of the most iconic buildings on the planet? Something more than just a tour that, I took one in 7th grade, but it's not the type of access and things you're going to see this weekend.
Well, growing up in Northwest Pennsylvania, I had actually never even been to D.C. until I had moved down to Virginia, and even then I've probably only been there 2 or 3 times where I've spent a significant amount of time with me and my wife took our kids there when they were little a long time ago, and we toured a lot of things and spent about 4 days up there, which was really cool. It was really educational. So to get a little deeper, dig a little deeper into that and learn a little more and experience a little more history and hopefully educate myself a little more. I'm always excited to do that, to see new places, meet new people, and experience new things.
Any additional hurdles you've got to jump through here? Obviously, security clearances and things like that. But, what's that process once you found out? What did you have to do anything extra?
No, I just had to fill out. We had to get them some information. You have to show your driver's license, had to give them our social security numbers and addresses and things like that. And they do some type of background check. But other than that, no. I've been communicating with some representatives from the White House on the details of it. But it's been a pretty easy process so far.
Now, like I said, I don't care about people's politics, and I'm not going to go into any particular political rant or anything. I am curious, though, does Tony Robie watch any of these political dramas that have been on TV, like House of Cards or West Wing or anything like that?
I did watch a couple seasons of House of Cards. It's been years. I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to the news, to be quite honest with you. So I'm not very politically inclined in general. So I don't really have a pulse on a lot of things that are going on outside of Virginia Tech wrestling, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, I did watch House of Cards. It's worth watching if you've never watched it.
Yeah, to a certain point, but we won't go in there. No spoilers here on Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. So, again, like you, I'm not a guy that keeps his finger on the pulse of politics, because it's, it is what it is there. The win at Ohio State, the Covelli Center, their new facility, big crowd, tight crowd, intimate atmosphere. What's it like to, first of all, before we even talk about the win, what was it like to go into that facility for the first time, knowing that there's still a buzz about what they've got there in Columbus?
It was awesome. It was awesome. We went up Saturday. We got an opportunity to get in there Saturday, work out a little bit, drill. Guys got in there, got a feel for the place, walked down into the competition arena, just so we could get in there and see it and feel it and, kind of experienced it before we were in there competing. But it was, credit to Ohio State, that building and that atmosphere that they've created there. For the sport of wrestling is something special. It's right up there with any other place that I've coached at. I've coached at Penn State. I've coached at Iowa. Coached at a lot of really cool environments, and what they have there is pretty special. It was a lot of fun, and I think they did a great job with the production of it. In addition to the facility is fantastic. Both their practice facility and then the competition portion of the facility. They've got a great thing going right now with that. But the production of the events, and I know a lot of people probably watched it on Big Ten Network. They did a fantastic job, and definitely when I go in there and experience that, you always come out of there with some new ideas and hopefully some things that we can add to what we're doing at Virginia Tech to make the experience as special as possible for our fans and our athletes. So, but no, I guess fun is the best word that comes to mind in terms of, how we felt about it.
Now, talking about the match, final score was 21-15. It started at 133, and when dual meet's coming down to the wire, what were your general thoughts about the draw starting at 133?
Well, we won the flip, and we chose 133.
So I'd say you like the draw then.
Yeah, I like the draw a lot. That's where we wanted to start at. We had reasons, just we felt like that was a good spot. Felt like they were cutting some weight there at 33, and I think it worked out well for us. So yeah, that was where we want to start, and I think when you're cutting some weight, if you're the ninth match as opposed to the first match, we're talking an hour and a half, 2 hours additional to recover. So, for us, we talked about it as a staff and felt like that was the best place for us to start. Felt like that was just an important match in determining the outcome of the dual 133.
And Colin Girardi, the talk was, Quinn Kinner, pretty highly ranked guy coming out of high school, of course. It came down to one crazy good scramble, staying out of where Kinner was good. And, was that a game plan for Colin, or was that something that just was feel and he just made the right decision at the right time to pull out that big move at the end?
Well, I think if you watch the match and you look at the match, I think Colin won a lot of positions, and I think that he was able to dictate what was going on. I felt like he scored. I felt like he should have been awarded the takedown. I think it was in the first period when he had gotten behind. He had gotten in a single leg. He had popped him up and came to the middle. Kinner had his ankle, but Colin was behind him underneath both arms. It's kind of a weird position. But I felt like that was two, and I felt like Colin really controlled a lot of the match. So he obviously winning that position with when Kinner was trying to turn him there and be able to pop his arm through and then eventually pop his head through, end up in that Turk position was huge, but was really pleased with the way Colin wrestled and Colin handled just the overall atmosphere. I think that's a common theme for the way that our guys approached this match and performed during this match, was being able to handle everything that was going on and the perceived pressure that came along with that environment. So yeah, I mean, I felt really good about the way Colin wrestled, but we have a lot of confidence in Colin. I mean, he's gotten a lot better in his redshirt season, and I think he just continues to climb and he continues to get confidence. And he's a talented kid, and I think the longer he is in the lineup and the more experience he gets, the more we're able to evaluate him and coach him. I think he's just going to continue to improve. He's just a guy that lives his life the right way, and he manages everything in his life the right way. And, that's kind of what you see on the wrestling mat from him.
Moving to 141, Mitch Moore kind of got hit with the a high offense. Luke Pletcher, rather. People have been talking about Luke Pletcher not scoring a lot of points in his career. He scored a lot of points here, picked up the major decision. And what's going on here with Mitch in this match? I mean, Luke Pletcher's number one in the country for a reason, but, I'm sure you weren't seeing major on paper here.
Luke Pletcher looked really good. He did a lot of really good things. So, man, I told our guys, if you want to, if you want to go watch somebody be a hammer, go back and watch that match. And Mitch stayed in there and he weathered the storm for a while. But Pletcher did such a good job with his snapping and faking, and was so physical with his hands. And when he clubbed Mitch and when he snapped his arms, he got to the point where Mitch was reacting so hard, it was just so easy for him to get on his legs. And you saw the benefits of that later on in the match. And it was, it got to the point where he was scoring takedowns pretty easy. So credit to Luke Pletcher. To me, that's what Mitch Moore that's who he needs to wrestle like, and he needs to do more of that. And I think he's very capable of doing that. But, like you said, he's a senior. He's ranked number one in the country. He's pretty darn good and was pretty impressive during that match.
Now a big one at 149, right after Mitch comes off getting majored. Brent Moore comes in, hips into Sammy Sasso, highly touted redshirt freshman, gets the fall. And that was, did the mood change there on the bench, or was this something that's it's getting a lot more play than it should, or was it just simply, Brent hitting the right move at the right time?
Well, I think I know this much. Don't let Brent Moore or Mitch get you on your back, because they're probably going to pin you. So it was, I think that Brent he's a student of the sport a little bit. Like, he's a smart wrestler. He feels things well. So I think he anticipated that a little bit. And, when Sasso tried to go off the elbow and duck underneath Brent's right arm, Brent just was able to pop his hips into him, and then was able to get that right arm back to the other side of his head, underneath his head, and, kind of caught him flat-footed. And like I said, once he gets you on your back, he's pretty good. Sasso looks like he hasn't been on his back a lot either. He didn't look real comfortable there, which is, he's obviously really, really good. But it was definitely a huge momentum swing, I guess you could say, in the match, and played a huge role in the outcome of the match. So credit to Brent, for taking advantage of that opportunity. And, that's kind of what Brent does, but he still needs to continue to be consistent. That's still the message to Brent Moore is, it was great. It was a great performance. You beat a really good guy. Enjoy it. But, consistency is what's going to win long-term, and what's going to win, over the course of the season and at the NCAA tournament.
BC LaPrade picks up the win over the unranked opponent, even though Elijah Cleary has been wrestling guys close. And with a matchup like this, and, BC's shown the ability to win good ones and lose some head scratchers. So, what's in BC's head prior to this match, and how were you pleased on his performance?
Again, it's consistency with BC. We've got to have the same guy out there every time he steps on the mat. And, I think he's done a good, obviously he was outmanned a little bit, didn't wrestle great against Deacon of Northwestern, who's one of the best guys in the country, but felt like BC wrestled well. I think maybe he could have scored one more takedown. He was real close to scoring another takedown. I'd like to see him start to open it up a little bit more and start to separate himself from guys of that caliber. And I think he's capable of doing that. But Cleary's, he's a strong kid. He's tough to score on. He wrestles a lot of guys relatively close, but overall, pleased with BC being able to go out there, get a W, did some good things. I'd just like to see him do a little bit more of it.
We look at 165 pounds, and this is a 1-point match, 2 penalty points. And I got to say, when I went back and rewatched it, the second penalty point with the mat, I just, what's the mood when something like that happens?
All you can really do is throw your hands up. I don't know. I kind of regret not challenging it, but he was standing right there looking at it. So my mindset is I don't think that he's going to reverse the call. I guess it is the rule. I mean, it wasn't like Dave grabbed the mat and pulled on it and pulled himself out of bounds. He was right there, and basically just, reached out and his hand kind of cupped the edge of the mat. So, but despite that, Dave didn't wrestle well. I think that he was a little too lackadaisical. I think that he was a little too overconfident. I think that he didn't have enough urgency, and he wrestled that guy's match. I mean, he just allowed that guy to call our time and squeeze him and slow him down to the point where I think towards the end, Dave started to panic a little bit. So, I think it's a good wake-up call for him, and not that he necessarily needed a wake-up call, but I think just in terms of you can't take anybody lightly. And I think maybe he went into that, and we had a lot of momentum at that particular point. That kid's back's been against the wall. He hasn't really wrestled well this year. Their team's back was against the wall. So Dave got his very best effort. And you have to be ready and prepared for everybody's very best effort every time you step on the mat. And I don't think Dave really was.
I'd only seen one other situation in college wrestling, and it was actually, I believe Matt Storniolo is immortalized on this picture by grabbing the edge of the mat when he was wrestling for Oklahoma in Stillwater. That's the only other time I'd seen it. And I'm looking like, okay, the mat, okay, he's up, but wait, it's part of me thinks it's the mat surfaces are too small. There was plenty of room there on the platform. So again, that could be just logistical things, the way the wrestling is with a rule the way it is. And there's a 5 foot, safety zone outside the circle, but wrestlers are 6 feet tall. So you got that. I mean, what are you going to do? 174, Cody Hughes picking off Rocky Jordan. Now, Rocky Jordan's still fighting for the spot at Ohio State, as is Zach Steiner at 184, but he also carries some legacy there with that Jordan name, having such a good career coming out of high school. And Cody Hughes, he's a Maine kid. He's been sitting there fighting for time in the lineup for years and getting, it may not be a statement win, but it was definitely a big enough win that, it made a statement for Hokie Nation. So, kind of a breakthrough type of dual meet team leading victory there for Cody Hughes.
Was real happy for Cody. I've been saying this all year. I think he's better than he's shown the first two dual meets of the season. I know what he's capable of. I see him in practice every day. I see him work. So I know that he's capable of a lot. And I think we kind of saw that on display. And I think as much as anything, he just did it. He did a really good job of being persistent, wrestling for 7 minutes, wrestling every second of the match. Even when he was on bottom and he got taken down and got ridden for a long time, his effort never changed. He still was, competing really hard. And I think that played into him coming out on top, is the fact that I think that, over the course of time, him not breaking and him not putting his head on the mat and putting his head down, ultimately, was to his benefit. And he made Jordan work really, really hard. Jordan got to his legs a couple times, and Cody got his hips on him and got his legs back and got off the position and, made him work really hard. And I think wore him out a little bit. And then ultimately took advantage of a bad shot. Again, used his hips really well, got his hips into him, stood him up straight, and then was able to pancake him. I thought they should have been 4 back points, but, what do I know?
Well, more than a lot of people, including your host. Now we move to 184. Hunter Bolin with a solid 8-1 victory before dropping matches back-to-back with Stan Smeltzer getting tacked by Colin Moore and John Borst losing a tight one to Chase Singletary. So, overall thoughts, Bolin wrestling pretty tough, pretty solid, probably a little better than that number 11 ranking gives him right now. But the top 3 in the lineup, you take 2 losses there. John's been in some tight matches. He's going to be in tight matches because he's a heavyweight. And then you got Stan Smeltzer wrestling a guy that's been an All-American on the podium numerous times. So overall thoughts about your top 3 weights there?
Thought Hunter went out hard and wrestled pretty good. He still needs to continue to pour it on. I think he was capable of getting a major. I'd like to see him go out there and score one. If he would have scored one more takedown, he was able to secure a takedown right at the end at the buzzer. But overall, good. I mean, he really controlled the match. He was never in danger whatsoever at all. Did some really nice things. It's a lot for him to build on and build off of. Stan Smeltzer, I know the scoreboard doesn't reflect it, but if you watch the match, his effort was really good. And, he fought tooth and nail every second he was out there. He eventually got a little wore out, but he was, you wrestle a guy that caliber, and obviously that guy's a lot better than Stan is at this point in his career. But felt good about the way he went out there and he competed and he fought. And, that's really all we ever ask of our guys. You're obviously going to have some difficult matches, and you're wrestling some guys that are better than you, especially when you're young. And I was pleased with how he looked and his effort. John Boris, the same. I mean, I think he's certainly capable of winning that match. And for John, it just continues to be a matter of him, believing in himself, his confidence, and giving himself a little more credit sometimes. I mean, I tell him all the time, I mean, you're just a big, strong, athletic guy. Look in the mirror once in a while, man. You're a stud. So he's getting better. I'll say that much. He's continues to add things to his wrestling, but we got to figure out a way to get our hand raised in that match. It would have been a good win for John. And Singletary was coming off a big win against Pitt, where he looked really good, and he beat Demetrius Thomas, badly. So I think John is improving, and I like the direction that he's going.
Coming back to 125 to close thing out, Joey Prada, Shane Sparks had mentioned this on the broadcast about how he'd been fighting injuries, and then came through, started last year, and then this match coming down to him. He loses, it goes to criteria. Granted, the Hokies have the fall. If there's any bonus points, Ohio State wins. The pressure was on John Bortz last week. The pressure this week was on a 125-pounder from Virginia. How did Joey Prada, in your mind, prepare for this type of moment?
I think it's just Joey's personality, and that even played into things a little bit when we were kind of trying to figure out which weight class we were going to start at. And I like this rule a lot. There's a lot more strategy involved. We had a feeling that this could come down to the last match, and I felt real comfortable with sending Joey out there. I don't think the pressure is ever going to get to Joey. He's got a lot of confidence. He's got believes in himself. The moment's never going to be too big for him. So he handled it really, really well. And his wrestling's getting a lot better. He's knocked off 3 guys that are all been ranked in the the low teens, the high 20 or the low 20s, the high teens, and he continues to improve. He continues to add things to his wrestling. His top wrestling is really, really good. So just, pleased with his development, happy for him because I know what he's been through and I know how hard he's worked to get to this point. He's had a lot of adversity. So yeah, I was really happy for Joey, and this was a statement win for him and something he's going to remember for a long time.
Now, as we move into this weekend, Navy Classic, we did have one question come in from the hotline. I would say it's a hotline, but it's the actual email address at insidevtwrestling@gmail.com from Brian Deeg of Oakton, Virginia, asking which kids will be attending the Navy Classic this weekend, just starters, mix of starters, backups, etc. And if we could get back to some of the signing day questions from the 2020 class, do any of them project at 197 in the future? And while you can't specifically name targets beyond the seniors, how heavy is targeting 197 for the future?
Well, first off, we're going to take the 10 guys that wrestled at Ohio State, and we are taking 2 additional ones, Cody Howard at 197, and then Caden Darber at 149. We'll all be competing at the Navy Classics. Signing question, I don't know that any of the guys who will be signed will be 97s. Maybe, Brandon Green and Sam Fisher, possibly. I think Sam's going to be an 84-pounder. I just don't know if he's tall enough. It wouldn't shock me if Brandon Green ended up being a 97-pounder, to be quite honest with you. He gets pretty big in the off season, so there's a possibility there. But 97 is it's definitely an area that we're looking at, and this next class is going to be really small for us. We just don't have a lot of scholarship money to spend, so hopefully that bringing in another big guy is a priority for us.
Now, as we look at the teams in the Navy Classic, the field seems to be a little more balanced. Seems to definitely be some more power this year in terms of if you look at the individuals coming from those teams. Air Force, American, Brown, Bucknell, Campbell, which is on the fringe of being ranked. They were ranked last week, fell out this week. Cleveland State, Edinburgh, George Mason, Kent State, Lock Haven, Michigan State, which had a big win over Oklahoma. Of course, Navy's going to have 900 of their athletes, and they're all tough. Ohio, ODU, Oregon State, Rutgers, the Citadel, and, of course, the Hokies. So impressions of the field that you expect to see in Annapolis this coming weekend?
It's good. It's very good. It's better than the last time. I mean, we haven't wrestled there in a long time, but it's a lot better than the last time that we wrestled there from what I can remember. So it's a solid event. It's good for us this time of year. I think it's a good balance in terms of the quality of the competition that we're going to get. It's going to be a good test for a lot of our guys. And I think it's a good opportunity for a lot of our guys to have some success and get in the finals and hopefully win a tournament for some of these guys that maybe have never done that. But the field is strong. I mean, if you look at those teams that you mentioned and you look at how many ranked wrestlers are in this thing, there's a lot of ranked wrestlers at a lot of weight classes. So we kind of talked about that today at practice a little bit and just wanted our guys to know what we're getting into. And we'll probably have a little bit of a target on our back too, just in terms of, because of our ranking and because of beating Ohio State. And anytime we wrestle some of these schools that are a little bit smaller schools, they love knocking off guys from Virginia Tech and from bigger schools. So we got to be ready to go. I also like the fact that there's a team scoring component to it as well. I think that, and this is something we talked about today before practice, is, we need to emphasize getting major decisions, getting technical falls, and getting pins when we have opportunities to do that, and building that team score. Because when we get to the ACC tournament and we get to the NCAA tournament, those points are critical in terms of where you finish as a team. We finished 1 point out of, I think, we finished 11th at the NCAAs. If we would have scored one more point, we would have been, I think, in 9th. So, all those points add up, they all matter, especially at the ACC tournament, because that thing's always a nail biter.
Yeah, one thing I looked at the way the schedule works is it's I don't know if this was by design or not. Navy Classic, week off Thanksgiving, and then we've got, let's see, or is my calendar off as I sit there and try to put my foot in my mouth here. So let's see. So Navy Classic, week off, Vegas. Yeah. So ACC tournament, week off, nationals. That by design to go, tournament, week off, tournament, or does it just work out that way?
I'm not that smart, Jake.
I was going to give you credit for that. There was a perfect opportunity for you to recreate how coaches build their schedule. We could have called it the Robie, but no, we're just going to, we'll call it the JB. No. Now, one thing I do want to actually go back on the Ohio State thing real quick before we close up shop here on this particular episode is you've been with this program when, at one of its darkest moments, when you and Coach Dresser are rebuilding the program and, building it beyond its previous highs. Now you're in a situation where your team comes off a win against the number 3 team in the country. Where do you rate the win over Ohio State in the lore, especially the recent history of Virginia Tech wrestling, and the level of how impactful and important a win like that is for the program?
I don't know. I don't think it's that high, to be quite honest with you, just because I think the expectations are a lot higher for our program now than they were in 2010. When we beat Oklahoma State at the national duels or whatever year that was a big deal because we were building at that particular time, and we had never had those kind of successes as a team. So to me, I don't really look at it like that. I think that this is, especially at this point in the season, we didn't really make a huge deal about it. It's great. I mean, it's great for our fans. I think our fans are loving it. It was fun. It was a fun atmosphere, but I don't think I put it up there that high. And it's just too early to even be able to evaluate it, to really know how good any of the teams are at this particular point in the season. There's so much wrestling to be done.
Because you had just spoken on how people love to knock off Virginia Tech. That wasn't a thing when you got hired, man. It was like Virginia Tech was happy to knock off those teams. Now you're those teams.
Yeah, it's come a long way. That's for sure. It's been for me something that it's been a great ride up to this point, and hopefully we just continue to climb. But grateful to have this opportunity and to be a part of it, and been here for that long to kind of, you have different perspective when you've been through it all and you were a part of that and you experienced it, and you know what went into getting it from there to where it is and where it has been. And there's been a lot of people that have contributed to the success: coaches, athletes, support staff, administrators. So it's definitely been a fun ride. It's fun to look back every once in a while and kind of enjoy those successes.
Coach Robie, travel safe. You and Mekhi heading to Washington, D.C. before the squad heads over a couple miles away down in Annapolis for the Navy Classic, which kicks off at 10 a.m. in Naptown on Saturday. So, Coach Robie, congratulations again on the win. Safe travels, and we'll see you on the next episode.
All right, Jason. Thanks a lot.
Hokie fans, listen to Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling anywhere you go by subscribing on Apple Podcasts. Go to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com/iTunes, or you can get the exclusive Android or iOS apps by going to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.